Okay,
Every
Stephen.
every week you guys have me going home. Every week I'm the odds-on favorite to leave. This time you finally got it right.
It's true. I don't know why people thought you were going home.
Yeah.
But
Well, they were right this time.
they were. I guess they were funny. Right. I know a couple weeks ago we thought it was you, and it ended up being Andrew Savage. I think. Is that right?
Yeah. So there was a boo list out there that I think a lot of people had read that had suggested I was playing home that week. So I think that kind of. But it was like 1-to-1 odds on gold for me.
Yes. It was. I don't know how people know these things because I'm always predicting, the wrong ones to go home.
Yeah.
Well, we saw a much more emotional side of you this time around. Was that just because it was so much pressure to do well on your second chance, or was it the weather? The weather really got you guys too. What was it that caused all the tears?
I think there was that pressure for sure. I think you're not just at that point. You're not just playing the game. You're also like, you're trying to fulfill people's expectations. You're trying to fulfill your own expectations. I mean, I think part of it may be too that I was playing a less emotional game with the people around me. And, as a result, all that emotion gets bottled up and it comes out when you're in your confessionals. For us out there on the island, those are our private moments. Like, granted, there are private moments with 14 million strangers, but like, it's like that's where you have the opportunity to break down a little bit, as opposed to when you're with the other competitors when you really want to have your game face on. So I actually think because I was trying to play maybe a less emotional game with the competitors, it became more emotional in the with America.
Right. And the 2-hour episode where you went home, it was very much a Steven-centric episode. The first hour, Jeremy used his idol to save you. First of all, was that a good move on Jeremy's part? Yeah, I can't believe it. I mean, I'm sure you were shocked.
Right. I think that, like, obviously when you see that I voted out next, it's easy to say, like, did Jeremy make a mistake? But, I think that you can't, like, I don't think you can make thinking, based on something that happened 3 days later when there was 1,000 other little things, variables contribute to that. I think in the moment, it was a good move for Jeremy. I think that it kept an ally in the game. It kept his alliance strong. Like, at that point in the game, Jeremy and I thought it was me, him, Kimmy, Tasha, and Spencer. And Jeremy thought he was with Joe too. But, against, you got, there's so many threats out there trying to take you out. I think keeping your own core strong is I think it makes sense as a move in the moment. Like, certainly knowing that he had the second idol, which none of us knew at the time, it makes even more sense.
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I don't dislike the move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't believe Jeremy has 2 idols. Kelly had 2 idols. Were the rest of you like searching, scrambling to find these things, or was there a part of you that thought maybe there's no idols this season?
Honestly, like, as crazy as it sounds, we kind of thought that. Like, because, for the last number of seasons, idols have been in the rewards. Now, Bion won every single reward out of the gate. And I looked in every one of those rewards, like, I, like, dug around in every single reward. Tasha and I would do it. And every reward I won, at the spa reward, Tasha and I were ransacked the place. And actually, I remember being kind of annoyed at Jeremy for not, like, helping us look more. But of course, he knew, right? Like, he knew how idols were being found. He knew that they wasn't happening on rewards. But for Tasha and I, we were, like, looking everywhere.
You just tweeted a few minutes ago. Do you feel like you're speaking gibberish because there's so much you want to say and you're basically saying nothing at all? Is there one thing you've been trying to say and no one's asked you yet? The question.
I don't even know that. That's a good question. I can't even think. It's like there's so much. Because like every single decision has like a month of context behind it. Like everything you do. Like, why did I trust Spencer on day 29? Well, you have to think of like what my relationship was like with Spencer before the game, and every single moment that we interacted prior to that. Or like, why did we split the votes in one instance and not split the votes in another? Well, there's a thousand little reasons that come to like, 1,000 interactions with every player, dozens and dozens of interactions with Keith over the course of a month contribute to that, so it's like, it's so hard to explain any one thing outside the context of the whole thing. I can, and I think that's always what it comes down to is like, you're making so many decisions moment by moment And some of them are wrong and some of them are right. And, only the ones that are really wrong and really right end up ever, making it to television.
Mm-hmm. And you were gunning for Joe, America's Sweetheart Joe, since the very beginning. I was really worried that if you would get Joe out, people would start hating you. So I'm kind of glad you weren't able to.
People are hating me anyway. Well, they're still hating me. No, it's just you suck. I'm so dumb of you to split the vote. Honestly, that's the thing I'm most surprised at. People think it's dumb to split the vote. For me personally, even more than they think is dumb for my alliance to split the vote. So they think that splitting the advantage is somehow worse than my whole alliance splitting our vote, and that's very confusing to me. I don't even understand that much.
If I have the numbers correct, I could be wrong. Even if you had voted, I'm trying to think if I have the numbers right in my head. If you had voted twice for Abby, it would have been a tie. Yeah. Is that right? And then
that's correct.
And then the people that voted out Joe would have probably just voted out you. So no matter what, you would have been eliminated. Am I correct in that assumption?
No, I think Abby, if we voted Abby, the tie, on the revote, I think I would have gotten Abby. So that wasn't the thing. I should have voted. But, it's I really, let's just, so going into it, when we just talked about, hey, let's put all of our votes on Abby. We didn't even think about using the advantage for that because we thought we had enough votes to do Abby without the advantage. So, in our minds, the advantage only came into play when we were splitting the votes. When we thought something was up, when we thought, we needed to be be reactive. So, it's our basic premises were Joe probably has an idol and Spencer's with us. And with those premises, I think what we did makes sense. Now, both of those things were wrong, but, assuming them, I think we made an okay choice.
Mm-hmm. At Gold Derby, we do predictions, as you mentioned. And as for the winner, people think that Jeremy, Wentworth, and Spencer are kind of in the running there to win. I know you can't spoil anything, but who do you want to win out of the people that are left?
Oh, wait, sorry. Who did you say? I mean, Jeremy, obviously, right? Jeremy's been my guy since the beginning. He and I were together since day 2. I guess that's the thing. Back to your question of what do you want people, with the question that nobody asked you. The thing that bummed me out about my edit in the beginning was less about how I was showing being a goofball, and more that they didn't show the strategic side of my game. More that because yes, I was awkward, but I was also hustling to make alliances, and I had I went up to Jeremy, day 2. I was listen, we need to work together or we're going to, there's too much strategic people in this tribe. We need to work together or we're both going to be out. And, we pulled in Tasha and Sierra, and we had an alliance on day 2 that was, we called the Elk. And I wish, that's the kind of thing. I don't mind looking like a goofball, but I was also playing the game, and I think that people didn't even, see that at all.
Right. Yeah. I'm worried because there's so many people this season, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff we didn't see, especially in those early episodes when there was 3 tribes and only an hour worth of screen time to come from that.
Yeah, and that's obviously the nature of the beast, right? It's an edited, it's 44-minute show. There's a challenge or 2 challenges in tribal council. You're not going to be able to see every single person doing every single thing. But, the thing I'll say is that every single person is doing every single thing. Everyone is hustling all the time. Everyone is making alliances. Everyone is, making, assessing their position within their alliance constantly. And especially with this group of players, everyone is playing so hard.
Do you think, I'm sure you've thought this before, but if you had not won that advantage, would you still be in the game? Because that is part of the reason people were afraid of you. And so that is part of the reason I think you got voted out.
I think that's part of it. I think that is a good part of it. I think not only, I think I wouldn't say getting the advantage is wrong because I think it would be terrified of having it in someone else's hands. But, I think I should have played it immediately.
Yeah, to get it out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. So you have it and then destroy it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Last season when they did this, a similar advantage, I think Dan went home the same day he used it as well. So it might be the new Survivor curse is the secret advantage.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something to that, I think part of it is that, you know, like, I mean, Dan's situation was very different than mine, right? Dan, by playing his advantage, caused himself to get voted out. Whereas I was getting voted out anyway. I played my advantage and didn't like successfully save myself. I mean, there's something too that it creates a huge target on you, but it's not actually that useful. You know, because you have limited information at any given time about what everybody is planning, it's hard to make the perfect play. You know, it's very likely that you get voted out with it in your pocket, that you play it too soon, that you play it in the wrong way, that you play it on the wrong person. You know, and the chance for a perfect advantage play for something like a double vote or a stolen vote is very, 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 very tricky. Obviously, something like Tony's Super Idol is a different story.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of talk this season about voting blocks versus alliances, and I think you are responsible for that. You're the one that quoted that term, voting block, if I'm not mistaken. Was that the big change this season from last season for you, that you couldn't rely on like one or two people? You had to just rely, you know, you had to go week to week as opposed to the long run.
Yeah, and I think voting blocks more came into effect with not even the one or two, so much as like the 4 or 5, you know? It became like you did have one or two, but you couldn't rely on the next layer of the onion. You know, you couldn't rely on the 4th or the 5th person to stay with you, because they were always hustling to improve themselves. And, you know, you saw that with Spencer this past week, right? You saw that with Sierra. Everyone who was on the bottom of an alliance was always looking to flip things to the top. And, you know, I mean, a lot of people have been like, oh, voting blocks, they said that in season 2 or whatever. Like, whatever. Like, that's not a, you know, to compare something someone said in season 2 I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's that apt, but, you know, my hope is if anything comes out of the voting block, is that people on the bottom will, moving forward in the game, not just this season, but every season, be aware of their position and realize that they can flip things, and take control.
Right. And we love that as an audience, too. We love when the underdog realizes they're underdog and then they become powerful. That's one of the great things about Survivor, I think.
Yeah, it is. Like, you know, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I mean, just like, you know, those are my favorite moments, too. And even, like, I think one of my challenges this season was that I was often in the majority alliance. And I think I'm better at playing from the bottom than I am from the top. You know, when you're in the bottom, you know, basically just lasting week to week becomes a strategic game. But when you're in the top, and someone like me in the top, you know, you have to differentiate yourself somehow. You know, I couldn't just be like the third guy in the major alliance. So I couldn't just be Jeremy's friend. I had to find a way, like, what's my game out here? So that was a challenge for me.
And one last thing on Twitter before we have to run here. You said you are chanced out. Does that mean you don't think you'll ever be called back to the show, or you don't want to go back to the show?
I don't think I would go back. Honestly, it's been an amazing experience, but like, I think I'm like, you know, certainly not the person I am now. You know, like I think I was too paranoid. You know, I think that, you know, I just, the whole thing, you know, watching it even week to week is too stressful. Like, it's a wonderful, incredible, amazing experience, and I'm so grateful to have had it twice, but I don't think I need to do it again.
Right. Well, it was fun watching you both times, and we will see you at the reunion. It's like just 2 or 3 weeks away. It's crazy how fast the season went.
I know. It's just 3 weeks. Yeah, it's great. And I think, you know, it's a great season still, and there's more great things to come.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Stephen. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.